actually rewarding at some point. Even in terms of market revenue stream that we brought to the company, at some point, Africa was the largest.
Whoa.
Exactly. So we ended up going there and proving that Africa actually is
Whoa.
a
That's
viable market
fascinating.
to be in. Yeah.
Mm. Mm. Wow, Sandro, that's fascinating. Well, hello, my people. StemToRoots. This is your host, Mike Demba. My guest today is Sandro Gohoho. You guys are in for a treat because this man is special. Sandro, listen. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go straight to it. So usually I'll ask my guests to introduce themselves, right? But you are so fascinating and my people will find out why.
Thank you.
I want to do this differently, okay? So I want to change the format a bit. I want my listeners to get to know you as I ask questions, okay?
Sounds
So
good.
don't worry about introducing yourself. They will know you, okay?
Yeah.
Sandro Boy. When I call you Sandro Boy, people should understand because
We go way back.
in fact, so when I drift to say Sandro Boy, let them understand why, okay?
Well,
Uh,
I'll also say when I call you Mickey D, it's the same thing.
exactly. Exactly. Let my people know, where were you born, Sandro?
So I was born in Skopje. Back then they called it Yugoslavia, but now it's called North Macedonia. So it's actually changed names a couple of times. And now we call it North Macedonia. No more Macedonia. So I've had to change it a couple of times. When it comes to paperwork, it's a hard trail.
Sandro, you just slapped me with a twist.
Oh,
I didn't know this. Wow, I didn't know this. This makes it even more interesting.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, my parents
Okay.
went to medical school there, so that's why I was born in Macedonia.
Oh,
Yeah, back
Macedonia.
then it was Yugoslavia. Now it's split up into many countries. You have the
Yes.
Croatias and all these other
Oh, you're
countries.
right.
Yeah, right.
Talk about parents. Okay. And so your dad is from where?
So he's from Ghana.
So your dad is Ghanaian.
Yes,
Your
yes.
mom is from where?
Guinea-Bissau.
Guinea-Bissau. So
Yeah,
that I thought I knew, and I know that. Okay.
yeah,
Your dad is from Ghana. Your mom is from Guinea-Bissau.
right.
Right? Your wonderful, wonderful wife is from where?
Cabo Verde,
Cabo Verde. Cape Verde in West Africa.
Cape
The
Verde.
reason why
Yeah,
I asked that I gave you that line of questioning is I find that just intriguing, very fascinating.
yeah.
So dad from Ghana, mom from Guinea-Bissau, your wife is from Cape Verde.
Right.
So that covers West Africa already. Okay,
Absolutely, absolutely.
and you went to school where? Tell me about
Oh
before
man,
college.
it's
Before college.
before college, absolutely.
Yes.
So I went to school in Guinea-Bissau. I
Yes.
started my primary school was actually in Guinea-Bissau. Then from there we went to Ghana. We didn't speak any English. My father said, "Hey, you guys have to start speaking some English here, man. I can't be the only guy in the house." So we're shipped to Ghana. I
And
was
you spoke what before you
Portuguese.
learned English? Portuguese.
Portuguese. It
Okay.
was Portuguese, Creole,
Yes.
local language in
Yes.
Guinea-Bissau,
Yes.
and we went to Ghana. Fascinating place. Just meeting family for the first time. It was just a nice transition, I would say. We had
Hmm.
really loving people welcome us, and as an 11-year-old, I didn't feel like out of place so much. That nostalgic feeling that you get being away from home. So we
Yes.
spent 4 years in Ghana, and then went to an amazing place where Mickey D was born, called the Gambia, and did my high school there. And
Yes.
then obviously Senegal, where we ended up meeting.
Wow. Okay. This
Yeah.
again, my people are in for a treat. So you went to school in Guinea-Bissau, in Ghana, in Gambia,
Yeah.
ended up in Dakar where we met.
Yes.
So by then here you were speaking Portuguese fluently, learned English, spoke English, and still speaking English obviously fluently.
Yeah.
Ended up in Senegal, where yes, school was in English,
Yep.
but it was a French country. It's a French country, and right
Correct.
after Senegal, you went where?
France.
You went to France.
Yes.
You went to France to continue college,
Right.
where you learned French.
Correct.
Man. All right. So Portuguese, English, French, and other local languages that you know.
Yeah.
You've born in Yugoslavia, Guinea-Bissau, Ghana. You went to Ghana.
Confusing, I know. It's
ended up over in Dakar, and then now you're in Europe. You're in France, where you finished college.
Correct.
And then, did you ever work in France, or it was just school?
I did. I started in the media sector in France before leaving. So it was. I did a couple of internships as well over there. Actually, one I was very proud of was working with the Roland Garros French Tennis Federation, where I picked up a little bit of knowledge of tennis. So that's kept me going till today. I still do love the tennis part of it. Met Rafael Nadal there. That's when he started shining. Yep.
Man,
yep.
Really?
That was cool.
So you got into. So let's get to your profession, and I'll come back because everything everything we talked about, I want to go back to, but I want to go and find out. Okay, before you went to France, did you know what you were going to do professionally?
So professionally, I remember when I went to the Gambia. I sat down with my dad and I said, he's a doctor, right? So I said, hey, Dad, I really want to do medicine. And he looked at me and said, okay, so I'm a doctor. Let's talk about this. And I can give you, the ups and downs of my profession and stuff like that. After the conversation, which was actually ideal, I think everyone should do. Before you go into a field, try to talk to someone who's already there and get that little mentorship tip. So after speaking to him, I realized, maybe this is not what I really want to do. He gave me some of the things that he works on, and he's really a hardworking doctor and really into saving people and doing amazing things. It's noble, it's wonderful, but I wanted to be in the business side. So that's when I decided, I think I'm going to do international business, and I want to do this in an international setting where I could actually do it in Africa, in Europe, in America, and just combine all these and get that cultural aspect to it, because that's when you can actually beef it up. Just the educational part is good, but if you don't have the cultural intelligence, then you're missing out on a lot of stuff. So hence Senegal, right? It was American education in Senegal. In France, it was exactly American education. Also Canada and United States. So it helped out.
Canada.
Yeah. Oh, you missed out in Canada. So I went to Canada. I was in Quebec. I did my MBA there.
All right, you just slapped me with Quebec.
It was called I didn't communicate much from Canada.
Those are two that I didn't know. I thought I knew everything, but all right, I didn't know those two. And all right, so this adds to the layers I want to peel today. So internationally, you've touched all these places, right, Sandro? And tell me how you ended up in California in the United States. Because now you're based there, right?
Yeah.
Professionally.
Right.
How did you end up there? And in telling me how you ended up there, just tell me what you do.
Okay. So Cali, I came out here because of a spin of a bottle. I don't know, you remember childhood days with spin the bottle?
Yes, spin the bottle.
Exactly. So so I got an internship in France. I was looking for the hardest job I could find and in the US and for an internship, and I ended up getting a job to do door-to-door sales in the US. And I was pretty excited by it. It was very challenging because just getting the job, actually the internship, being signed up was already tasking. So I went to Nashville and they said, this group, 20 folks, you're all coming from France. This group, you're going here, you're going there. Let's spin a bottle and see where you're going to land. And voila, it was Los Angeles. And I said, wow, LA, what do I know about LA? I knew nothing about Los Angeles at that point, very little. Just the glamorous stuff that you see all the time on television. But there is a lot more to it. but landing here in LA for that internship was just it was an eye opener, and I felt the energy. There are lots of places that you kind of connect with
Yes.
on a spiritual level, and
Yeah.
LA I kind of felt like that. It was just big. I could think bigger. I could aspire for more, and just the people here are just incredible. It is my favorite city in the world, so
Wow.
after having landed here, did a 4 months about 4 months of internship here doing door-to-door sales, which was highly challenging. I was knocking on,
Door-to-door sales
yeah,
in LA. Uh-huh.
in LA,
Okay.
yeah, knocking on 80 to 100 doors a day, getting rejections and
Of
meeting some
course.
amazing people.
Of
It was
course.
very, very difficult, right? You're working from, you start like at 7 something in the morning to about 9:30 at night. I don't know if I would let anyone do that these days, but yeah, it was just on foot. um, it was pretty amazing. And when I left, I went back to France. I said, hey, I finished my college and decided I'm just going to continue in the media sector, and there's no better place than Los Angeles. So I started working in France. I was already in the magazine business, international business, and came to LA and joined the film business as well, doing international licensing, sales, marketing, all that cool stuff. So I'm having a blast.
You are having a blast. Oh man, it sounds like it. Sandro, it sounds like it. So, wow, I didn't know this is how you ended up in LA. First, is spin the bottle. Like I
Spin the
promised
bottle.
my people, I'm like, you're something else.
Spin the bottle
Spin the bottle.
sometimes. You never know what, God's has for you,
That's nuts. And then 4 months of an internship that was door-to-door sales
Yeah,
for somebody that is in business. For me, just self-help books and just listening to podcasts and radio and whatever. Like I hear a lot of successful people talk about that being a foundation, like meeting people, the rejections, all the no's, like
right,
and the hard work, like literally hitting the pavement. You did
right.
all of that. All
Yeah,
of that I didn't know. All right, that makes so, Sandro. Now that you've told me all of that, here you are. Now let's go way back.
yeah,
You know Guinea-Bissau enough. You grew up there, spoke Portuguese. You know Ghana enough. You're well rooted there. Your dad is from there. So for us Africans, culturally, you're Ghanaian.
right.
So
Absolutely.
regardless of where you were born, where you were raised, your dad being Ghanaian, you're Ghanaian. You ended up in Gambia for school, and
Right,
when you were in Gambia, you were not there with parents. You were there with siblings.
right.
Man, that alone is nuts. New country where young, like this is what high school, middle
Yeah,
school, what
yeah,
college?
yeah. Haven't been home with
Education.
my parents since I was 11, so it's been, traveling. Just have, extended family members who are very, very supportive. But it's not the same as having mom and dad, right?
It's
There's
true.
that
True.
physical connection wasn't
Yes, I hear
present,
you.
but somehow
That's
they were
crazy.
there.
First of all, I don't
Yeah.
know who leaves Ghana to go to Gambia for school, but put that aside.
Gambia is nice.
Gambia is beautiful. It's nice, but education-wise, all right. Let's so let's talk about all these places that right now. If you were to choose these places, you have enough of a connection to settle down there.
Yeah,
Now tell me, in the spirit of STEM to roots and the conversations we want to have here. Now you ended up in America, you ended up in LA.
yeah,
LA is literally, top 3 cities in the whole world for anything.
right.
Because it's so mixed. It has everybody there and it has everything in there. So I feel like, as far as just progress in your profession and opportunity, you've chosen the right place to be, to maximize that opportunity and whatever you can gain, in this your professional life.
Correct.
Is there any place that I named that is just professionally,
Yeah.
that is at that same level where you can say, for what I've chosen to do in my life right now, there's a place comparable? I'm talking about Africa here. Is there any of these places that you know that can be compared?
Well, I think Joburg would be one of those places. Johannesburg, South Africa, could be a place
Mhm.
potentially. I did, I've been there a couple of times and actually did love Joburg. Really, really great place.
Nice.
Um, but I think Ghana's got something. There's something about Ghana. Every time I land in Ghana, it's like you get that spirit just pushing you. There's that connection and
Huh.
drive to do stuff there. You
Yes.
leave Ghana and you come out kind of renewed and just re-energized, right?
Yes.
um, so the industry is not as matured there as
Yes.
South Africa
Yeah.
and Nigeria would be, and even
Mhm.
Kenya. I would say Kenya is
For what you
steps
do,
ahead for what I do, right?
remind people again. Uh,
Film distribution and
Distribution. Yeah.
licensing, correct. So I take content from producers and directors, like what you're creating now as a content, and then I
Mhm.
take that and put it around the world onto different platforms, and then so when you watch stuff say on Amazon or Netflix, those would be my kind of clients, right?
Ah, I see. I
Correct,
see.
yeah.
I get
So
it.
they
Yeah.
they
Okay.
present the content to you, but we're the guys on the back end doing all the
Oh,
the
that makes
the
sense. That makes
business,
sense.
right?
And it didn't make sense to me until you put it like that. Because lately, I've been lucky to have my mom come visit in December, and I've been looking for stuff for her to watch as an
Right,
African old woman whose English is not all that good. But sometimes just seeing images that she's familiar with will help.
right,
And that's how I got to search for things on Netflix
right.
that I didn't think were there because I never cared to look, right? So
Right,
I'm
right.
seeing content from home, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know Netflix had that.
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
so that's the kind of thing you do. You
yeah.
distribute.
There are many platforms. Tubi is one,
Wow,
Momitu
I
is
see
one.
2B. Okay,
There's just so many
I
platforms
see, I see.
that she can actually access some of her content from.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay. Yeah, yeah. So you were saying that. So you were saying the comparable ones would be Joburg, and in Ghana you have
yeah,
this feeling of wow, this would be a great place to do something.
right,
In Nigeria, as far as what you do, they've been in the film industry for a while now,
yeah,
and Nigeria has been really really improving. For us,
yeah.
when I started watching Nigerian movies, yeah, you know how those were. Like, they've improved
Let's
a lot.
shoot it quick. Let's get done this quick. Nigeria's it's got great stories, so they just have to pump it out into the
Yes,
business, into the
yes,
market. So they
yes.
do such a great job with that. It's
I
naturally talented folks. It's
I
amazing.
know, I know.
Yeah,
They've been in the film industry forever, and
yeah,
we've all witnessed them grow.
yeah,
To a point where you watch a Nigerian movie now on Netflix, you're like, wow, this was
yeah,
produced at home. So like that's fascinating. And for you, for what you do, here you are in LA. LA is literally is the maker of just film making.
yeah,
So you are the very top. I don't see a better city. I don't see a
yeah.
better place as far as making movies. None. All right. So as young as you are at the tip of it, way at the tip of it. You've given how many years to LA now? How long have you lived there?
In this business, 17 years now.
Man, all right.
Yeah,
So 17 years of your professional career you've given to LA for all the right reasons. All right. Was there any time during this whole, because I know you, we've just talked about your background as far as Africa,
right.
where you thought about giving most of your professional life to a city like LA, to a country like the US, and you know where you're from. Is there any time that you thought about, man, I've given so much to this adopted home. What can I do at home? Have you ever had thoughts like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was always in part of my way of thinking. It's
Mhm.
always Africa is at the center of it. So when I started actually with the film distribution, I ventured to Africa.
Mhm.
So I did, that was maybe 10 years ago or a little bit
Mhm.
more. So I actually did the distribution part of it in Senegal. I went there, worked professionally in Senegal in film distribution with the same company, just expanding our reach into Africa because when I joined, the African continent wasn't given significant value as actually rewarded at some point. Even in terms of market revenue stream that we brought to the company, at some point, Africa was the largest.
Whoa.
Exactly. So we ended up going there and proving that Africa actually
Whoa.
is a
That's
viable
fascinating.
market to be in. Yeah.
Mm. Mm. Wow, Sandro, that's fascinating. And wow, see, I'm not surprised. So I didn't know that that was possible. So that just tells you when we talk about the continent, there's we're talking about just the film industry, but you touch on other topics. Like other people that I talk to will say surprising things like that, just to
Yeah.
tell you how untapped Africa is.
Yes.
Because when it comes to the film industry, I didn't think so. That just tells you, you know, like there's a lot of places that are mature or getting to maturity as far as like just, you know, if you talk about distribution and stuff.
Right.
Africa is just so untapped in so many ways.
Yes.
Something like this is clear proof, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. So you as a professional, is there? So I've spoken to other people, whether it's my story or other people's story, where you have obligations. Like we end up doing this thing that we love, but we want the reward of what we do, whether it's compensation, whether it's, you know, just the economics of it. We that is something that's important because, you know, you have a family to feed and people that
Yeah.
depend on you, right? Do you consider or think about, you know, or was it a consideration in choosing a place to live and work professionally to maximize what you bring in for yourself and your family? Was that part of the thought process?
Of being like here in Los
Yes.
Angeles?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I think the economics of it makes a lot of sense, and I think the dynamism of this market being in LA alone, there's just so many more opportunities, especially in the creative space.
Mm-hmm.
People want to bounce ideas, you know, and just kind of come up with the right strategies and being able to move at it really quickly. It's such a fast-paced industry we're in. Our whole the movie side, it's if you notice the media in general, it's evolves so quickly. It keeps
Yes.
you young. There's
Yeah.
always something fresh
Yes.
happening.
Yes.
So it's through the
Yes.
media that you find there are new technologies for other stuff and this. So the media actually does adopt it pretty quickly. So you're always learning and trying to adapt to the changes. So being here definitely had to play a part, you know, if you want to be at the forefront of these things.
That's the point. And for a young person who is starting in this career, you know, being in a place where there's growth, there's learning, there's continuous kind of developing, you know, the
Correct.
skill set and the experience, you know, no place better than LA for what you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And
All
here's
all
why
the best mentors are here as well. I work with fascinating people. I meet amazing people every day that I'm learning from. I just love to learn from these folks. They've been around doing it for a long time. So where else can you get better teachers than here, you know?
and this is so it was a rhetorical one. This is something I know is the case. Other people that I've spoken to in their different professions, stuff like that comes up, right? And you think about Africa, you know, you're a young professional, you have to maximize what you bring in, not only the financial part, but also learning, because you need to grow in what you're doing before you call
Absolutely.
yourself a film distributor and whatever your profession is now. And now, because we are from this continent, and we just gave an example of how untapped it is, but you know, we as professionals growing up at a time where we end up in career choices that, you know, we know where, you know, to get the best from. And if Africa is not the best for what you're choosing to do, is there a level of responsibility that you give to, you know, here's where the list is long, you know, the people before us, the government, history. How do you think about that when it comes to, man, I would have loved to do this in Africa, but if I want to maximize what I can bring in, you know, Africa is not the place to actually learn all of this.
Right. So I think part of it is, you know, we look at I'm not going to get into a blaming thing,
Of
right?
course, of course.
Obviously, our governments are doing what they're doing, and we hold them accountable for so many things that have, Africa has been shortchanged in so many ways, right?
Yeah, right.
They need to beef up whatever they're doing. They really need to step up the game. Um, and also, I think infrastructure in terms of even just internet. Internet is just opening up the market for so many things we Africans can do. So look at South Africa right now. We're talking about, energy crisis or,
Yes,
electricity, right? So those are basic things that you want to make sure you have to invite people to come and feel comfortable, have your power, have your basic infrastructure, have your cable internet, that is fast enough for you to be able to produce this kind of content.
right, right.
And that is going to make a lot of people want to go home. And the other thing I think personally is the healthcare, right? If the healthcare system was up to par with the rest of the world, because even our leaders don't use our healthcare system, they always fly them to Switzerland and other parts of the world, right? So if the healthcare was really good, a lot of people out here or Africans would pack their bags and go home and try to do great things. Because I was in Ghana just 2-3 weeks ago, and the internet is working great, as far as I noticed. And I was able to do some work from there, right? You don't feel like you're missing out too much.
Yes.
But if that piece is missing,
Yes.
it's a setback for a lot of professionals to move back home.
Sandro, so you've touched on this part that I actually want to talk about in the other side of our segment, because that's so huge, that's so important. But you mentioned something. You gave an example of Joburg. So we're talking about South Africa. We're talking about Johannesburg. I've been lucky to visit in October, just this past October.
Oh, great!
And
I
didn't know anything about South Africa. I didn't know anything about Johannesburg. And then on our way back with my wife from Zimbabwe, we stayed in Johannesburg for a week. Fascinating, beautiful place, like you just said. Beautiful. And then they're going through this thing they call low shedding or something.
Low shedding,
something like that, where you'll have electricity for a couple of hours, and they talked about why. And a city like that, fascinating city like that, where, like you said, if they had all those things in place, I can put Johannesburg to that level of anybody walking anywhere, that if they have everything they need as far as infrastructure goes, to go and live in South Africa and work from there and actually live that high standard of living. Any country, any city, let's say. So I found that fascinating that something that key, electricity, was missing in a wonderful, wonderful city like that. But before we talk about that, because that's where I'm gonna go as far as our infrastructure goes. This midway already. I can't believe we are halfway through this conversation.
Already,
wow. My God, Sandro. Wow. But here's what I love to do when I go midway. Let's have a break, because my mind has been going 100 miles an hour. This part of the segment is where I want to learn something. Me and everybody that's listening. So interesting, fascinating, wonderful people like you will come in. You know so much. If I can take one thing, just anything, it can be lighthearted, it can be something serious. Teach me something that you think I don't know. And if I don't know it, I'll admit that I don't. If I know it, I'll let you know that I do. So I know some things, and then I'll give you a chance to teach me something else. All right. Are we ready?
Well, make sure you don't have ChatGPT with you, okay?
No. I'm not gonna cheat this time.
ChatGPT is doing some amazing things.
Oh, it's doing amazing things. That's a whole other conversation. Yes.
So, let me see. Maybe in our world, right? We've been talking movie. We've been talking content. What are some of the ways, right, that you can monetize the video content?
Wow. First of all, I'm glad that you brought that up, because it's something that I need to know. I don't know if I think about monetizing a video content, because first, wow, I'm glad you asked me that, because my first intention in doing this is because everything we're talking about right now is a conversation I've had with friends. And there's this very important aspect of that conversation where young professionals living outside of their country and thinking, man, I want to contribute in Gambia. I want to do something in Africa. I want to tell my kids, my friends, my parents that look what I've done in Africa. I don't just want to visit, look at the continent, see all the setbacks and say, well, I live in America. You know what I mean? So, so because of that, like I've had this conversation so many times. Basically, right now I want to talk our way into a plan. That's what I want to do. So that's why I want to bring in enough people to hear from them and hopefully come up with a plan. And in that being the first intention, I said, all right, let me record this. Let me have this out there. And monetizing was not my thought until I saw that people that post these things end up monetizing. And when I think about monetizing, all I think about is YouTube.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
Yeah.
That's it, Sandro. Yeah. So that's my answer.
All right. Well,
when it comes to monetizing content like this, YouTube is all I know.
YouTube is it's actually one of the best places to have your content. If you're doing well, there are 3 ways. I'll come down to the YouTube. 3 key ways the people have been doing. Like if you make a movie today, you could go advertising, which is where YouTube goes. So we call it AVOD, advertising on demand. Awesome. And then we have the subscription, which is where you subscribe to like a Netflix, right? To watch your content. So that is a subscription, and you make money through the subscription. The first one, you make money through the ads, right? So every time someone watches an ad on your YouTube video, you're making money out of that. The second way is subscription. Every time someone subscribes on a monthly basis, you're making money from that. And then you have the transactional, which is when you go to iTunes and you purchase something for $9, $9.99 to be able to consume that content. That's a transactional video on demand. So these are 3 key ways of you to monetize. And hopefully, we never know where this goes. I might end up distributing some of your content. Making more money, then you can take that money and do great stuff back home, right? Don't leave money on the table.
You're something else. The fact that you just took this time, this midway through our segment, to teach me something that will be so useful to what I'm doing right now. Right. Just says a lot more about you. And let's continue. Let's shoot on. Thank you for that information. For me and for listeners who are in this business or who are trying to do something similar, there's the nugget right there. This is a part that I wanted to talk about that you touched on already, Sandro. So we leave the continent. For me, let me talk about me. But the intention was cool. I also started, on that track of international business and international relations. Because I wanted to follow my dad's footsteps. He was working for WFP on the UN. I'm like, this UN thing is fascinating. I want to.
It's amazing.
I want to.
Everybody wants to be part of the UN. Yeah.
I want to go back and help people go to the rural areas. My dad, they call it trek. Go help people in the villages and stuff. That was what I was thinking. Until this country hit me with financial issues that I could not get that level of education that you graduate and then you have to go more before you start earning. So I had to re-strategize and think about something I can do real quick and get money whilst either in school or right when I finish, right? And that actually threw me to the tech side. So I ended up doing tech and then got in IT, and just like I said, I started work even whilst I was going to school, and tech was paying good enough to live on. I say all of that to say, once I was done, now this thought of Africa, this dream that I had, I would go back and work in these villages. Now that my background is in tech, my first challenge was, all right, I've done an internship already. I'm already in a job that will keep me. What I'm learning already in terms of technology, I was lucky to go home. Well, the circumstance was not a lucky one. That was when my first trip was when my dad passed away. Then I went home right when I finished. I went home, and here I am with a tech degree. I went to see a friend of mine who was working in a cyber cafe, like a very quantum, a very well-established cyber
Quantum.
cafe
I
in Gambia,
know Quantum.
the
Yeah.
biggest one at that time.
Yeah.
And all their computers were XP. When in my internship a year prior to that, I had upgraded all my office computers from XP to Windows 7 then. I'm dating myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at this, none of them had Windows 7 then. All those computers were XP. So I said, all right, this actually is clear to me that for what I do, if I was here right now, I will always be a couple of steps behind. And this is technology we are talking about, right? Yeah. So if it's technology and I'm a couple of steps behind and I am just beginning to learn, just like you mentioned, like the mentors and the access and stuff, I'm just starting to learn right now. So Africa cannot be the place for me. I need to maximize what I can learn so that I'll call this a profession. And so I had to erase the thought of Africa, right?
Yeah.
So I touched on that to say, you mentioned infrastructure. You mentioned, all these things that are relevant to what we do. How much of that is important for a young professional, just somebody starting in their career and they happen to be outside the continent? How much of that is important for growth, for building what is important for them to call a career? How much of that is important? What do you consider important?
Well, I think it is extremely, extremely important because like yourself, when you go home, there is a minimum that you're expecting. You've already been here, you've done things, and there is a bare minimum that you expect. First of all, roads, some of the roads you have just one option, right? To get to wherever you're going. If there's an accident there, then all of a sudden, everyone's plans kind of crumble, right? So roads is major, and health, I always talk about that because I think personally, that's what I've seen being affecting other family members a lot, right? On the health side. And you always wish you could do more, but there is just what we have, and there's nothing you can do outside of that. So health definitely is a big part. But also the education. The education has been extremely based on less on the practical side. We're still going into very highly theoretical, and you see, I've been in the classroom for so many years in Africa. These are brilliant people, right? And what we've been lucky, right? You and I being out here, we've been lucky to make it out and actually be able to utilize our intelligence to achieve other things. But there's so many amazingly intelligent people back home that haven't had the chance, right? But the educational system they're within just gives them stuff that is maybe not as useful today as they should be. Pretty much they should be using things that we use here. Now with the access the internet has given the rest of the world, we should be able, we shouldn't have as much excuse anymore. Elon Musk says, some people don't even need to go to college. You can just have your internet and you educate yourself.
And you educate yourself enough.
So we have no excuse, right? We were talking about ChatGPT recently. My friend and I sat down and said, let's he typed, two good friends sitting down, writing music, working on something on social media, and he wrote a whole song in 30 seconds, And so there's just so much out there that we can utilize. And so we can't say everything is we blame it on the macro system. Some of it, we have to take responsibility ourselves to kind of improve and leverage the playing field for ourselves to excel.
For ourselves, And when I think about that, this is where you and I both don't think it would be helpful to be pointing fingers. It's not. It never helps. But we know for a fact that there's a level of responsibility that somebody else has to take care of. Because when it comes to the masses, that's why we have governments. That's why we have, places that are structured in a way that when it comes to grand projects, talk about roads, talk about healthcare, individuals alone cannot do enough to impact the masses. And when and this is a challenge because I have so many examples. We actually have a mutual friend I don't need to mention here that reached out to me not long ago, works in Africa and a professional in Africa, and was working on like YouTube and Facebook ads, right? And being in Africa, he tried to contact a customer service from Africa, right? And could not get through. Like, tried all different type of ways, and this is part of his job. So he ended up having to contact me. It was easier for me to contact customer service here, give him the number, the American number, than reaching, Google and Facebook customer service from Africa. So if we are trying to compete at that global level in actually, getting things happen, and we can't even make a call, contact support for help, like it's like you think about Africa and you're like, all right, like how are we going to be able to do this, right? And you want people to think, all right, Africa is an option, right? As far as young people that are getting into whatever they're doing, you want to let them know Africa is an option. But when they point these things out, then you can't add anything to it. You don't know what to say, because now goes beyond what one person can do.
Yeah.
You mentioned healthcare, Sandro boy. Access. You talked about this already, but as a family man, how much of that is important to you, that you have your family and you think, even if it crosses your mind that, okay, I want to spend the next 3, 4, 5 years giving to Africa, which means maybe I need to be there physically. When you think about your young family, how important does that role play?
Yeah, well, as a father, I think primarily your thoughts is providing security to your family, right? And being able to say, I did my best. And I did my best. I think when we're talking health right now, I don't feel that would be where I would feel comfortable. If anything happens, God forbid, when you're there, then you're kind of stuck in a system where you don't trust people or have all of what it takes, because they also need the equipment, etc. And having the equipment is not all. You have to be trained to use that equipment, right? And people have to be incentivized to also do their job. And a lot of these other places haven't really given all these doctors what they need, and also even the incentives that they should perform. So as noble as these amazing people work, sometimes they even work without pay, and they still wake up early morning, iron their new clothes, go work, the uniforms they work, and they just happy to be there to do the best they can, right? But again, like you said, they're just factors they cannot control, and I have seen, people for simple things, and it just gets complicated afterwards. So that's one of the items I just have to always look into, right? As much as I really want to just pack my bag and say, hey, let's do this adventure, spin a bottle, let's choose maybe one place in West Africa and go and have a good time. And we can still, because now we can all work from home to some level, right?
Yes.
We can actually, this is the age where people should be able to take those adventures and go home and do it. But health is very, very demanding, I think, when you
mentioned health and your family, in thinking about where you can protect and give your family security.
Absolutely.
Health becomes a big one. And so in deciding that at this point in your profession where like you have so much to give, but there's this additional layer of complication when you think about those young, innocent, beautiful ones that are your primary responsibility, taking them to a place where it's riskier than where you are right now. Then you question yourself, all right, if I'm doing this, what should be the priority as far as like who I give my most, right? So that's healthcare. The education part, right? Here's why I want to mention that part. For me, as a Gambian, did my high school in Gambia, went to Dakar for college 2 years, and throughout this whole time that I was in high school and went to Dakar in college, my main focus and goal was, higher education will be best achieved outside of the continent. This is my thought process, right? And that's what I wanted for myself. So now that I've been blessed with two sons, when I think about education, and I want them to be educated enough to be able to compete in this global village of ours, like at the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
So if up till this point, I think that the education they will have here in the United States is not comparable. When it comes to in general, right? I think about that in that level, in that thought process of, hey, should I be home right now and say to myself, nah, I don't want my kids to try to take them to Africa so that they will figure out how to leave Africa to go get education.
Yeah.
Have you thought about education at all when it comes to you and people around you?
Well, I thought I took my kids home about 1.5 years ago. They fell in love with Ghana. It was first time, and thinking the usual thinking is, oh, would they be culture shocked and this, that? But they just loved it, right? And my kids actually want to stay. If we had the chance to stay there, they would want to stay there. And Ghana's got a great education in so many ways. And the people, thankfully, the school I went to, my peers, that went to the same school are doing great things around the world. They're really, really highly educated people. So I think the foundation that you get in Africa, because education is not just A, B, C, D. Yes. There's so many other things build your character and prepare you for the real world. So in many ways, it's there. There is access to it, but the problem is, to access the very best, you're gonna have to cough out some, pay up for it, right? Yes. Here, it's more equitable because it just depends where do you live and etc. Yes. There is some nuances to that as well, right? But there is still ability to go to some really good schools without having your dad working with the United Nations and all that kind of stuff, But yeah, there's nuances.
You mentioned something I want to touch on, but before that, I want to clarify this because for people that don't know Africa and for people that know Africa, when it comes to education, that's the key right there. What you just mentioned. There's high level of education. There's really good institutions at home. Yeah. Just that, especially at a lower level, is the access. So the people that access those bilingual schools, that I remember when we all met in Dakar, our peers from Francophone countries, man, how they were on another level. Coming from Gambia, I remember sitting in our calculus class, and they were looking at calculus, or what was it? Calculus 101, whatever that is. Yeah. Like, what are you doing? This is what we did in primary school, kind of stuff, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So education in Africa is fascinating. And the point I was making when I said how my thought process was leaving the continent is, first, the mentality, and second, the level of access. Yeah. So that education that you go to this special school to get requires the level of money that the masses don't have. Yeah. And that's the difference between there and here, where, all right, for me, I don't even know whether where I live here I'll call middle class or lower middle class. Whatever level I am, I have so many options for the kids, and that was what I was talking about. But what I wanted to go to that you mentioned is the kids. You've been lucky to know, again, those African countries we named. Let me start from the latest one, the bird, because wifey is from there. Dakar, Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, and Ghana, right? So you've seen so much culturally, socially, and all that. Do you watch your kids right now in LA and you see an experience that you have that they are not able to have living here that is important to you right now as a grown man? as far as your upbringing? Yeah.
Yeah, I think growing up in Ghana, just yesterday I was talking to my nephew who flew here from Boston, and I was telling him how in Ghana we had technical skills in school, and I learned how to do woodwork, metal work, in school, and just a little bit of farming as well. You get into it,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it's
Agriculture, they call
not
it.
a
Yeah.
choice. You have to do it when we're
Mm-hmm.
going to school there. So there are just so many different things that we actually do learn there, and you build your character. You build your character. It's that you have to study hard. It's very competitive, and so Ghana is really high up there. Senegal, I think it's another place. If I also had a choice,
Yeah.
despite it's French, but I think
Love that city.
Senegal,
Yeah.
it's a really
Yeah.
great place, and
Yeah.
they really value education.
They do.
And so that could have been another choice as well. I love the car.
Yeah, oh,
Just
I
being
love that
there,
city.
it's a
Yeah,
nice
I
place.
love that city. There's so many places. There's a lot of cities that I would love to live in Africa, and then this becomes the challenge, and that's why we are having these conversations. Like for many, because we know friends and colleagues and people that we know that have been able to go home and establish themselves, and them and their kids are having a good life, right?
Yeah,
But our conversation is about the masses. It's not
yeah,
just cherry picking this person and that person, because you can find those, right?
yeah,
But it's just the masses, just the access, the availability, and all that stuff.
yeah,
And this conversation is, for me, it's fascinating in different ways, because these are the things I've thought about over and over, and hearing from you, seeing that somebody like you, Sandro, we are talking about a person who you have vast experience, different countries, different languages. Matter of fact, for somebody that speaks Portuguese, French, you have more choices than just LA. Have you ever thought about any other place? Not
outside
Africa per
Los
se,
Angeles.
but have you ever thought about any other place?
Well, there's this beautiful small place in Switzerland called Basel. I used to always think of Basel as a place maybe that I wouldn't mind settling in. But
Really?
after LA, I think if I had to make any move outside LA, it would be straight to Africa, nowhere else.
I hear you. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I see.
yeah.
I see. So Africa, you're still considering it. You're not thinking about Africa just for retirement, because there's a lot of us that are stuck to just think about Africa for retirement.
Yeah.
Are you still considering it as, hey, whilst I'm still in tip-top shape and a lot to give, I'm still considering Africa? Is that the case? Is that what I'm just hearing?
I think so. I think definitely, without a doubt, I do. I think for many of us that are thinking maybe of doing stuff at home, there is a responsibility that we have also towards the continent and helping get things going. But you can also start something small. You don't have to just pack your bags and move. I don't think that's the best way to do it. Always just start small and maybe have one little thing working there. Get one, two people, three people, four people, and keep adding up. So whenever you make that transition, you're not going to start it fresh. You've already built a foundation to keep growing from. So I think that's the easiest way to make that transition.
I'm glad you said that. So you're thinking, if one is thinking about home, and whether you're right around our age or you be older than us or younger, a way to do it is in bits. Like find a way to contribute to an area, one person, a sector, just giving little by little. And if a lot more people think like that, and a lot more people do that, they can be here whilst they do something little, which can be summed up to some progress, right?
Absolutely.
Because everything we talked about is just true, and that's why we are talking about it. That's why we're bringing it to the table, and solution oriented. This conversation, that's where I want it to lead, and that's where you're going already in suggesting how to do it. We just don't want to point out problems.
Yes.
We want to think about how we can better help, and that's key, Sandro. And first, in rounding up, I am so happy to have you. And as we progress in this conversation, Sandro, there's a lot more that I would want to have you for.
Yeah.
Maybe by then it will be specifics and not just generally getting to know you and how you think, but it will be more specifics because we wanna figure out solutions, that will address specific, like whether it will pick education, whether it's healthcare side, whether it's just professionals that are trying to like learn a craft and stuff that is not, resources are not giving them. We want to touch on all those things, and
Right.
we will definitely love. Actually, not only I will have you back. You know,
Speed dial, bro.
man, I will have you back because you have a lot to teach.
A lot. With I think we parted ways almost 20 years ago, and but we have such a solid group, and
Yes, we
and
do.
to me, up to today, up to date, I think about what we built as a community, our little community.
Yes,
Um, Back
yes,
then, it was just an amazing group,
it
and
is.
and I'm so
Still is.
proud of you, Mickey D,
2 decades
for where you
later.
are today. I know all of our, as I say, your milestones that you've gone through all through these years, and you've just turned out to be such an amazing, always been amazing. But yeah, I'm proud of you, bro. I'm proud of
Sandro
you. You're
boy.
doing good stuff.
Oh,
Happy
thank you,
happy to
man.
see you here.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Is there anything? Because I knew you were busy in some African related organization. Is there something you want to share that people can look for and look at in and help whichever way? Is there something you want to share before you go?
Um, yeah, so I do something in Africa. Run. I have about almost 20 employees there. Office there, and also, so I was there about, like I said, 2 3 weeks ago,
No, not long ago. Yeah.
and yeah, but also here in the United States, I'm part of a nonprofit, and
Yes,
it's called Africa Focus Network.
it
Anyone can
is.
check it out. And our main focus is actually to help the African community here be able to mentor the students just before they finish. They want to know what our lives are like, right? Whatever direction you want to go. We have professionals on the other side who have already achieved it.
Yes,
In the sciences, we have so many professors, the accountants, and lawyers, and doctors who they can talk to
that's
and
huge.
figure out what should I do in this regard.
Yes,
And we're able to help them, mentor them, and whatever struggles they have being in school and university, we all know, we've been through that system, so we
yes,
know how to guide them and help
yes,
them navigate so their path is much smoother than what we
yes,
went through. But also on the other side of the coin, we think of the professionals, and we say the professionals should also network among each other and be able to utilize each other's skills to build
yes,
value amongst
yes,
ourselves. So
yes.
I have many of my friends now that we use for each other. If they're looking for branding, graphic design, I have a company that does that. They utilize mine.
Working
If we're looking for an accountant,
Yes,
I also
yes,
use theirs.
yes.
Um, so we're building that little African movement that can build a lot of value around the world, and especially in the continent.
When you mentioned that to me, I found it fascinating, and that's why I wanted you to talk about that last. And I'll get all the information that I need. Once I distribute this content,
Yes,
I,
we'll
I
take
will
it out there.
I will
Millions
slap
of
it in there
eyeballs.
for the masses to see, because I think that is so profound,
Yeah.
because I know how important information is, right? So
Yes.
whether it's mentoring people that are trying to get into professions that already professionals are into it, like information, just getting the right information just changes everything,
Yeah.
And as Africans, just that networking component that you guys have, where hey, I'll use you because you're a lawyer, you can use me for tech, I can use you because I don't know what to do with my content, you can tell me how to monetize. Hey, I have healthcare issues, who is specialized that my mother can
Yeah.
talk to because her English is not fluent and she's from Africa. So that kind of stuff. So
It helps. It helps. But we're
fascinating
also looking
stuff.
for excellence, right? Like we don't
Right.
think just because you're part of the network, then you
Right.
deserve my business. We think there is some responsibility of excellence that we also
In
have to
delivering.
vet and make sure we
Yeah.
validate before we move forward. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Mickey D,
Thank you
you're
so
doing
much,
great
Sandro.
things.
Thank you for coming. This is just one of many conversations.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate
Yes.
you. Thank you, my brother. And this, man, this will blow my audience's minds because
Thank
I
you.
knew this was
Thank you.
going to happen. Thank you, brother.
Great talking to you, and I'm really humbled by your invitation. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you.